Hi and welcome to this new video. This is a special video because we're going to start a new video series which is how to use ROS in different game engines. In the recent years, game engines have become very popular and very powerful, and for certain aspects and applications it's a good option to use in robotics. In this first video I'm going to show you how to use ROS2 in Godot. Godot is a free game engine, and you can use it for whatever you want, and you don't have to pay as far as I'm concerned. This video wouldn't be possible without the work of Evan Flynn. He is the creator of this Godot ROS plugin that we're going to use. It is very well made. It has very simple applications for the moment, but give him some love for the fantastic work that he's done. And also, if you want to contribute to the code and help him, sure, he will be more than glad and happy to receive some help or contributions of this kind. In this Rosject, I've prepared a tiny demo where you can see how easy it is to use ROS2 in Godot engine versus other game engines that we will talk. If in the comments you like this kind of videos or you're interested, please leave it in the comments below. So let's get started. The first thing that you have to do is open the Rosject that I've left in the video description. You click the link and you launch the Rosject. And when you're here, you should get something like this, and here you have the terminal, and you would launch here the commands. So let me just close this and show you how it's done. The first thing is you should have to, there you go. You have to execute each time that you launch the Rosject this commands, because it installs certain elements that you need for Godot to work. It's just copy and paste these commands into the terminal and just execute them like that. Yeah. I won't be doing it because it's already done in my case. Then the next step is just to source the ROS installation that you might have. In our case is Galactic, but this, as far as I've tested prior versions of ROS2, it also supports them, but I've tested it thoroughly in Galactic. It's very important that you source the Galactic environment. So you go here, you source it, and we also go to the Godot folder. I'll explain how to build and install this in your local computer if you're interested. But you can also use this Rosject to do tests fast and without having to be worried that you might break something, or maybe you don't have a very powerful computer to do the compilation, which is quite heavy. So you execute basically the IDE, and let me just, because I had it already opened, let me just be sure that we don't have anything. Okay, so let me start it, execute it again. It would automatically pop up something like that, a window like this. Maybe it appears a window that tells you that you have to go to the asset store to get some projects. Don't say cancel and that's it, and then go to scan, and inside Godot project in the home user I've posted a git with two basic examples of Godot, that one of them is modified with this ROS2 plugin modification, which is this global illumination. In this case you would just go scan and put in Godot ROS tutorials and select the current folder, and it should appear all the projects that there are here. This is something that I've been maybe in the next videos we will try to use it. But here we're going to open global illumination, which is a very basic and technical demo of the capabilities of simple 3D illumination and moving it around. There you go. So you will have something like this. Here we go down and we see this node. In Godot you have, in a scene, you have nodes, and you add them by clicking here in the plus, and then you add a node like that. That simple. You can use also a spatial something, but you could add just a node like that. Very easy. And then it has a hierarchical structure. Okay, and for each node you can associate a script. So in our case, we have created this node which has a script. You see, in this case, we've added a spatial. Why? Because if we go up here in the test and we add a spatial, one of the things that we can do, we can add this script, but you could add it to any node. Basically, you could add it to any node, any character, any object in the scene. You could add a node of ROS and have functionality for ROS, publishing topics, reading topics, this kind of stuff. In this case, I'm going to remove this just because it's not worth it. Well, let me just show you. To create a script, you would just click here, and it will create a script, a random script, with the basics of GDScript in this case, because Godot uses GDScript. Okay, so here is where all the magic happens, and GDScript is very similar to Python. So if you know Python, it's more or less the same. And here you access all the functions, the methods, actions, and everything that Godot gives you. In this case, I created this one, which is ROScam node, and here I've essentially copy-pasted the scripts of example that Flynn gave us here. So here you have two examples. One of them is a talker that we won't use here, and the other one is this viewport publisher. Okay, you can also have a look at this code here. In the IDE, you go to Godot, and in modules, I've installed this Godot ROS. And here, you could see these two examples, okay, like this one, yeah. But we're going to have a look in the editor because it has syntax. And here what we have is a very simple spatial node for Godot, which is like saying the most simplest element that you can have in 3D space. And here we are in this function, this is the ready function, which is executed when we want to initialize this spatial node of Godot, and each of these elements has in their scripts their own ready function, and it's something that all these spatial that inherit from node have. Okay, here what we're doing is doing this ROS viewport spin sum, and we will talk more about this, but essentially we are initializing ROS. We are connecting with a timer in GDScript in Godot, and that's it basically. We're not doing anything very fancy. We are just doing a wait of 0.3 seconds, and then we will execute this on timer timeout every 0.3 seconds, which we want to do this because we are going to get images every 0.3 seconds. And here what we're doing is we are getting the camera of Godot, of the 3D scene, into this variables, and we are republishing it into ROS, which essentially is here we are getting this image and we are converting it, and then we are using this ROS object to publish it. Let's have a look what happens. So we hit play, and don't move the mouse because for some reason it gets a bit crazy, and just click and hit ESC. That way you won't use the mouse to move the camera around, and with WASD you can move the object around, and this is just a testing object. And if you hit space bar, you can swap between different qualities of rendering. In this case, this one's the best one, as you can see. And yeah, so you have a testing ground for any Godot game that you want. You can use this anywhere, 2D, 3D, it doesn't really matter, but in this case 3D makes more sense. Okay, so now let me just stop it, because I made this a bit more difficult. Let me just come here to the notebook, and I have some instructions here, so you can follow. And what we're going to do is launch it again, but this time we're going also to activate RQT image viewer, which is a ROS basic tool to see images, to see the same images that the camera in Godot is seeing. Yeah, so let's have a look. Okay, now let me start here the RQT image viewer. Let me just launch. There we go, it's launching. Now I'm going to launch the RQT, and there you have it. So for some reason I'm getting this very strange mouse issue, but we're getting the idea. Okay, so now as you can see, I'm moving in the real environment, in the Godot environment, and I'm publishing this image into Godot, into ROS. So from Godot to ROS. Yeah, and if I change of mode, it will change in the same way. There you go. Yeah, as you can see, it's more difficult if the textures are more complex, just because the acquisition of the images and rendering and publishing, it's more difficult for Godot. But it's a first step, and what shows this is that you could use this to get images from this game engine for your own applications, and it's absolutely very easy to do it. Okay, so for the people that wanted to see the demo, that's it. Now for the people that want to know how this is done, then stay until the end. So how this was done, I have the instructions here, the one that I followed, I generated by doing more or less. And essentially what you have to do is, one, download the source code of Godot, the version 3.4. Why? Because the newest versions, which is 4. Blah blah blah, this plugin, this module, it's not supported, or at least the tests I did, it doesn't work for the moment. Then what we have to do is compile with scons, And depending on your system, you might want to increase this number of codes. I had 16, but if you have more available, then you can put more. And then test that everything works by launching it. And then once this is done, then you have to go to Godot modules, which is this folder that I showed you here, modules, inside the Godot source, and copy and, well, clone the Godot ROS.git. Yeah. Once that's done, then there's one last step until before compiling and having it ready in theory, which is changing your ROS distro. To do that, you just have to go, let me just go here. So here in the Godot modules, Godot ROS scub, which is this file here. There you go. Here what we're doing is setting which version of ROS and which CPP version we want it to be compiled. Depending on the version of ROS, maybe you want to change this. Okay. So in this case it's Galactic. If you wanted to put Foxy, then Foxy, and then you would have to adapt maybe the C++, maybe. And then here is one of the work that Flynn has made, which is adding all the library dependencies and building so that Godot can find automatically the ROS libraries. And once you have this, then you can go and compile in the same way we did before. And then finally you can execute as I showed you in the beginning of the video, and you should be good to go. One last thing to comment on is the fact that how this is done for the people that maybe want to do, maybe it's not image publishing, maybe you want to ray trace publish and then generate lasers and publish those lasers, for example. That could be a very good application. So what you have to do is look on the documentation of how to do modules in Godot, but you have this one as an example, and you can see that you basically have two parts. You have the include and source, and in the source what we're doing is defining in the bindings between the Godot scripts that we're going to use, that we need to use in Godot, and the C++ classes, which are defined in ROS, in the libraries of ROS. In this case, you can see that we're binding it to pub image or spin sum with these viewport pub image, viewport spin sum. And if we go to the second part, which is the include, and you have to look this, you can see that here we're defining the viewport, and here we're defining a spin sum, the pub image, everything. And this is, you can see that here it's like a ROS plugin. The structure is very similar. And here you define whatever you want to do with ROS when you call those functions in Godot. Yeah. And that's quite it. So thanks a lot to staying until the end. Like the video if you liked it. Please leave in the comments below anything that you want us to do for Godot engine. Maybe some custom game with ROS functionality inside, maybe something 2D, maybe some custom plugin that we want to develop for this. Whatever you find interesting, leave it in the comments below, and subscribe if you haven't. Until then, peace.